Hello, I'm Jim Roberts. I'm the associate pastor of the Peace Congregational Church in Indiahoma, Oklahoma, and I have the privilege of serving under my father, Pastor James Roberts, who has been the pastor of that church for the last 50 years. This video that you're watching was done as part of the celebration of his 50 years serving as the pastor there at the Peace Church. We're rejoicing in the blessings of the Lord. We've seen the Lord do wonderful things over the past 50 years, and we trust that you'll rejoice with us. Psalms chapter 37, verses 4 and 5 say, "Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass." Today, we're going to be celebrating the goodness of God, and particularly the goodness of God that has allowed Daddy to pastor this church for 50 years. You just don't see that sort of thing every day, and so we have cause for celebration. As far as I can tell, Daddy is one of those people whose desires have come to pass. Of course, he dreamed of marrying a beautiful wife, and God gave him Mother in 1949. As is the case with all of us who marry a godly woman, I think Daddy would agree that she turned out to be even more of a blessing than he ever dreamed. Also, it was his desire to be a preacher, and God called him to serve the Peace Congregational Church. The Peace Congregational Church was formed in 1914, and the building looked like this in those early days. In 1958, the Sunday school rooms on the south end were added along with the vestibule between the two Sunday school rooms. But today we celebrate Daddy's 50 years of service here at the Peace Congregational Church. I think we'd all agree that we have truly seen God's hand of blessing over the past 50 years, and what a great time it has been. Daddy recalls that in the early part of January 1961, Casper and Katie Fisher came to talk with him about coming to preach at the Peace Congregational Church. And on January the 29th, 1961, our family first appeared on the steps of this church. The building looked something like this when we got here. Of course, the South Sunday School rooms had already been added. As it turned out, on that first Sunday, Brother Louis Rep was also here from Weatherford, Oklahoma, and he too was prepared to preach. But when he saw Daddy, he insisted that Daddy should preach. After church, Brother Rep went with us to Cash and Katie's house, where we ate lunch with all of Cash and Katie's extended family. That night, Daddy spoke here at the church again, and after that service, the congregation voted to offer Daddy the pastorate. For several years, we rotated among the families of the church for Sunday lunch. That was always a great time for our family, and we have some wonderful memories of those times. When we started coming out here, it was way out in the country. There were very few hardtop roads. The church had no running water, and so we had outdoor toilets. Many of us can testify to the fact that those toilets were not heated or air-conditioned. In 1961, we sat on wooden pews that were made by Mr. Dan Fisher I, who was the father of Dan, Fred, and Alec Fisher, and our Dan Fisher is Dan Fisher III. When this church first started, and for many years, all services were in German. But as time went on, English was more and more accepted. When we got here in 1961, the Sunday school responsive reading included a 3-part rotation, with the Sunday school teacher reading one verse in English, then the congregation would read the next verse in English, and then those who could read German would read the next verse in German. Daddy's ministry here at the Peace Church hit the ground running with many things happening that first summer. That summer, the oak pews that we now use were purchased from the First Methodist Church in Frederick. and at that time we also added new wall heaters. That summer, the young people started going to the Texas Bible Camp. At that time, the Texas camp was being held at Camp Koinonia in Mineral Wells. The young people of our church continued to go to the Texas Bible camps even after we started our own Oklahoma Bible camps. In August of 1961, the very first Vacation Bible School was held here at the Peace Church. Daddy likes to tell of the first planning meeting, which was held outside in the yard at Reuben and Ruthie's house. Everyone was very excited to have Vacation Bible School for the kids. In the spring of 1964, the fellowship hall and kitchen on the west end were added. Before that, when we had a meeting here of our 5 conference churches, people would bring food and eat on the pews or eat outside if the weather was nice. I think that at one point, just before the annex was built, everyone went up to Sam and Mary's new barn to eat. So after the annex was added, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Peace Congregational Church. That was on April the 12th of 1964. In 1973, central heating and air conditioning were added to the building, and in July of 1974, Mother and Daddy celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. In September of 1975, rural water came to the area and restrooms were added to the annex along with a storage room. According to Wilma Fisher's records, it was on January 16th of 1977 that Daddy gave the first broadcast of Bible study time from what is now KYBE in Frederick. I think that back then it was an AM station. Up until 1981, the outside of the church looked like this. And on the inside, the pulpit area looked like this. But on January the 26th of 1981, work started on the remodeling of the sanctuary along with the addition of the 2 north Sunday school rooms. I guess that would have been just about on the anniversary of Daddy's 20th year as pastor. We see that the men did the work themselves. They raised the pulpit area and added the choir loft. They added new lighting and the hanging ceiling. They added paneling and new windows. The South Sunday School rooms were enclosed as we see them now, and carpeting was added. Dr. and Mrs. W.T. McCollum donated the deacon benches behind the pulpit, and Reuben Dreeth designed and constructed the pulpit that we still use. On the outside, the building got new siding and a new roof. The ladies tackled the huge job of refinishing the pews and clearly did a whole lot more.